Jonathan Lipp here from the Big Apple Film Festival. How you doing? We are here with Josh Tickell. Hey, Josh, how are you?
Hey, good. How are you?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you. So thank you all for being here. This is our final conference of the evening, and we are talking to Josh. And is Rebecca here as well?
She is not, unfortunately, no. Just myself.
Okay, so we have Josh with us, and Josh is one of the creators of the documentary Kiss the Ground. And we're talking about documentaries and films for social change. And Kiss the Ground is a great example of this, and the film features very well-known individuals that are featured in it, including Woody Harrelson, Ian Somerhalder, amongst others. So I'm going to ask Josh if you can tell us a bit about Kiss the Ground.
Sure, absolutely. Look, the film has been a long journey to make it. Rebecca and I have made 14 environmental films. This is probably our biggest and most ambitious project. And it's a very simple sort of premise. It's how do we reverse climate change? How do we reverse global warming? And how do we make that into an interesting movie? Because I think both of those questions are difficult questions. And Kiss the Ground is the result of trying to answer both of those questions with one movie.
Right. Now this started out as a book, is that correct?
Yeah, well, actually, the film came before the book. The film was the original intention. The book was a result of all of this filming. We sort of coalesced all that filming into chapters. The transcriptions turned into 10 chapters for the editors. It was an editing guide. And then those 10 chapters, some other people read them and said, well, this is a pretty good book. This should be a book. So in the middle of making the movie, there was a book. And now there's a book as well as a movie.
All right, excellent. Now, I guess it's sort of self-explanatory, but ultimately, what do you want to achieve with the film overall? What would you say your overarching goal is here?
Well, the film is, look, there's a lot of great documentary films out there. A lot of social issues that our planet is dealing with and that people are dealing with, obviously. But if we don't have a planet to live on, all of those social issues become moot points. And I think, we're so used to seeing environmental documentaries that make us depressed, make us kind of see no hope and no end in sight. The Kiss the Ground motto is that there's a solution for every problem. And this problem, climate change, seems intractable. It seems like, well, we'll get through the coronavirus, and then we'll get through this difficult election, and then we're all going to boil to death. That's kind of bad news.
Right.
We wanted to show a different perspective and a different pathway for the future. And the film is the first blueprint for how to really reverse the process of global warming. And it can be done in under 3 decades. It is not involving some crazy technology. This is something that is done through an organic process where we caretake for the planet. And in so doing all of this, we provide better food and more nutritious food for billions of people. That's a no-brainer. So the purpose of the movie is really to educate, to train, to empower, and to uplift our hearts in a pretty dark time, I'd say.
Right. Now, not to give away too much or anything, because I know that the film is being released. However, are you able to give sort of just a general overview of some of the solutions that are addressed in the film a bit? Are you able to mention any of the solutions sort of, regarding this issue?
Yes. So we focus on the idea of regeneration. What is regeneration? Well, it's very simple. It's the operating system for ecology. So when you pull a leaf off a tree, the tree regenerates, it regrows a new leaf. When a lizard loses its tail, the lizard grows a new tail. So we're very familiar as humans with like micro examples, little examples of that. What we're not familiar with is the macro example. Like we've taken 2/3 of the planet and turned it into desert. And we're less familiar with the power of macroecology to regrow itself. But that 2/3 of the planet that has been desertified can be restored to lush ecosystems. So what we show in the film is a process of using agriculture to regenerate, regenerative agriculture, a way of growing food, which also grows trees. It also brings more water into a local ecosystem. It increases the growth of plants. And so you're providing more calories, you're providing ecosystem restoration, and at the same time, you're pulling down carbon out of the atmosphere. That's the sort of multi-stage win that we show in the movie. And some of the examples are quite large. We show an entire province in China that this has been done from a desert back into a lush ecosystem. Super exciting.
Interesting. Yeah, I was actually just going to ask, is regenerative agriculture happening already? And you're saying in China, there are places where they're doing it.
Yes.
Is it
Yeah,
happening?
it's happening all over the world, as a matter of fact. It's happening all over the world. And that's the exciting thing, is this is not a pie in the sky idea. This is an actual, real, happening now, and powerful concept that when you really get it, wow, we can regenerate in cities. New York, here you are, Big Apple Film Festival. You know, we can do this on rooftops. We can do this in community gardens. We can do this in parks. We can do this around cities. Cities can be a hub for regeneration, and that's very exciting.
How did I guess scientists discover regenerative agriculture? Where did this come from? I mean, I'm personally not that familiar with it. I assume a lot of people are not. Where did it all come from? When did it start?
Well, the science is relatively new. We're probably within a decade of this science being out in the world. So, you know, really, if you think about a decade ago, where were we? Like 2010? You know, it was like cappuccino time in America. Like, you know, 2006 was a big deal because Al Gore released An Inconvenient Truth. And that's, oh my God, the planet's heating up. This is bad news. We've all got to change our light bulbs. That didn't, you know, ostensibly change the direction of the climate crisis. But over the course of time, scientists began to look at, what if there was a mega sink? What if there was a mega way to pull CO2, like a teraton, you know, 1,000 gigatons, all the CO2 that humankind had put in the atmosphere? What if there was a way to pull it down out of the atmosphere and put it somewhere? And turns out there is. The soil and plants and microbes, if they're managed correctly on a global scale, they do that almost as an automatic response. It's like an autoimmune response. The body of the planet is responding to the out of balance. And the out of balance is just humans. We just put the carbon in the wrong place. That's the bottom line. We stuck it in the wrong spot. And great news, the Earth wants to regenerate. It actually wants to move the carbon into the right spot. We just have to help that process. So again, relatively new science. It's sort of a cross spectrum science, meaning it happens in biology, chemistry, physics, geophysics. You know, there's a lot of different departments that this had to come together in order to click and make sense. And the data is there, and the power to sequester the carbon is also there.
Now, does your film Kiss the Ground address the opposition to this whole, you know, I know there's a population of people who may not believe so much in climate change. Does it address sort of that side of things as well in the film?
Well, it's interesting. You know, a lot of the people featured in the film are not believers in what we call anthropogenic climate change. So human-centered or human-caused climate change. There's a lot of big characters in the movie who are very important to the film, who, if you ask them, you know, do you believe that humans have caused climate change? Well, no, absolutely not. And so we do address it in a subtle way, in that the characters, the people, the subjects of the movie, are not necessarily big climate change believers, some of them. And that's interesting, to have a climate change film that has people in it that doesn't really believe about climate change. My kids may invade here in a second. So the exciting thing about the movie is it teaches a story of how we make our farms and our food better and our health without, you know, quote unquote, the politics of climate change. Like, if you're a farmer in the Midwest, you can watch this film and be like, right on, I get that and I believe in it, and that is a great thing, and here. You know, I don't have to believe in all the climate change stuff to get that, hey, this will work on farms and I can be more profitable. And Well, that's a good thing, you know.
Right. Now, let me just say, if anybody has any questions for Josh, feel free to put it into the Q&A box, and we'll get to you.
It's a
How would
box.
you?
Yes.
There should be a Q&A thing at the bottom there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm looking
If
at
anybody has
that.
any
Yep.
questions, just click on Q&A and feel free to type in your question. Just for if anybody's on here that's not quite familiar with exactly what really is meant by climate change, like myself, for example, this is certainly not my area of specialty. I've heard people talk about climate change. I've heard people say they're not sure they believe in climate change. What exactly is happening when we say climate change? What exactly is the situation as from what you know of?
Right. Well, to break it down very simply, and this happens, you know, in a very quick animation in the movie, which is, you know, kiss the grounds. Look, if you, whether or not you believe in climate change or you understand it, doesn't matter. It's not a prerequisite. Kiss the ground's very, you know, it's made for everyday folks to just watch and enjoy. Look, it's Woody Harrelson. Enjoy Woody Harrelson, right? It's like cheers.
Yeah.
So essentially what has happened up till now on our planet is human beings, we've burned a lot of carbon-based stuff. We burned a lot of coal, we burned a lot of oil, we burned a lot of gasoline, and we cut down a lot of trees. We burned some of those trees too.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those very dense forms of energy, when you burn it, you combine the carbon in that thing with oxygen. You oxidize it. It is the process of burning. And so you make a new molecule, and that molecule is CO2. It's carbon and oxygen combined.
Mm-hmm.
And it's lighter than air, so it goes up into our atmosphere. It stays there for quite a bit of time, 100 to 200 years. So it creates this, sorry, you can hear my kids in the background. It creates this thermal backdrop, or this blanket around the planet. When the sun shines through that, hey buddy, I'm talking. Oh my goodness, that's incredible.
And look at this.
I gotta show you my
Look at
kids.
this car.
Come here, buddy. Come show
Look at
everybody.
this car. Show what?
Come say hi. Oh, look what I found. This little guy.
Hi.
He's making a guest. You're making a guest appearance at the Big Apple Film Festival.
Welcome.
I just wanted to show you a space shuttle and a car,
Oh, that's cool.
both of which contribute to climate change.
All right. Very cool.
Thanks, Jedi. All right, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.
Where's my mom?
She's out there.
She's in where?
So as we burn these fossil fuels, this blanket, the sun shines through and it creates a greenhouse effect. Just like the sun shines through the glass in the greenhouse, the heat gets trapped inside the blanket and then it can't get out. So over time, the heat increases. Now, that's one aspect of it. There are other aspects of it, including other gases, methane and other gases like that. But essentially, that is the process of warming the planet. Over time, that creates other cycles that change climate. So the water cycle starts to change, the amount of water that comes out of the atmosphere, how it falls, when it falls, cooling patterns, the thermal patterns around the planet. All of these things are interconnected. And all of these things, when you start to pull the one string, one thread, they're all affected. So that's why we see climatological changes, not just warming, but extra cooling, more rainfall in some places, less rainfall in other places. It's the planet's natural response to something that's out of balance that luckily can be put back into balance.
And let's just say if we're unsuccessful at putting it back into balance, what's the ultimate consequence? What could end up happening?
What could end up happening?
Yeah, like what could be the long
Well, look, I don't want to be the bearer of bad news, but you know, it's not good. You know, scientists, the IPC is the International Panel on Climate Change. It's the largest scientific endeavor to date in human history. It has created 2 billion data points. But basically, the IPC says, look, we've got 10 years to mitigate the rise in temperature, or we create some really runaway scenarios. Species die-off, desertification, lack of fresh water, lack of food. Now, these are the real tangible results of runaway climate change.
Okay.
So we're talking about, look, by 2050, the reality is we've got to produce 60% more calories on planet Earth. And we've got to create habitat for 1 billion human beings that don't exist yet. So the real high stakes of this game are that by 2050, if we don't do this, we're going to have 1 billion climate refugees, human climate refugees. I'm not even talking about the other species, blah, 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 any of that stuff. 1 billion people that don't have a home, that don't have food, and that don't have water. That is a crisis the likes of which no economy or government is ready to face. We're not equipped for that. We're not able to deal with that. I mean, look at Brexit. Look at the European Union feeling just the power and the push of what is a relatively small migrant crisis. So, we are talking about an interconnected social, environmental, planetary set of issues that seem unsolvable, except when you watch Kiss the Ground, you realize, wow, these guys spent 7 years making this film, these guys being our team, with a bunch of scientists to show us that there is really a viable way to do this. I see a question just came in here.
All right. So we have a question here in the chat. Your story was such a far-flung production. Did you have a lot of units spread around the world?
We did. As a matter of fact, we had units in Africa, Haiti, I can't even remember, France, all over the planet. Sometimes I was able to travel with them, sometimes I was not. But yeah, at the end of the day, I kind of lost count of all the camera people and, production people all over the place. It was quite a coordination effort to get all of that stuff back and then put it into one movie.
Interesting. There's a question in the chat box. Whenever we think about films for social change, very often we think of documentaries. But in the chat box here, Jennifer asks, can we make films for social change that are non-documentary form, like a narrative?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And the Jennifers are winning, by the way, in the questions. Somebody with a different first name wants to ask a question. So yes, look, Rebecca and I just made a movie called Heartland, which we're bringing out next year. It's about the 2016 oil pipeline protest that happened in North Dakota at the Standing Rock Reservation. It's a social change film. I think participants made a number of good social change films. We just watched a classic film last night called Wag the Dog with Dustin Hoffman. And I mean, wow, talk about a classic film. That thing it's ageless, but it's about the manipulation. Oh, see, there's Jennifer Morton. The Jennifers have it on this panel. Yeah, it's a great film, Wag the Dog. So I think that there's a long history of actually social justice or environmental justice oriented films, usually done in a very subtle way in a narrative, sometimes a more overt way. But what a powerful medium to begin to have and tell stories that make people choose different things, like Dark Waters, the recent film about, sort of industrial pollution. Brilliant.
Right.
Yeah.
One of the, we have filmmakers on here who are, emerging filmmakers, documentary filmmakers, and one of the things we hear a lot about is impact campaigns. Can you explain about what an impact campaign is and maybe how you're using it, if you are using impact campaigns, if you're familiar with it?
Well, to be honest, this conversation is part of our impact campaign. So, most filmmakers make a film and then they're so over it that that's it. They send it off to iTunes or Apple or whatever it is, and they're done. And that is awesome. If you can do that, by all means, be done with your film. Move on. We tend to look for funding sources that will help us continue the release of the film. And we look at foundations, we look at philanthropists, look at people who want to step up to the plate, write a little check, and help us continue the process of distributing the film. That can mean everything from translating the film into a lot of different languages to get it to different audiences, to doing film festivals over the world. Usually we would be, excited we would be in New York with you. That's what we usually do, is travel to these things and get to interact with audiences. Due to COVID, there's a lot of virtual, screenings.
You initially premiered at Tribeca. Was that your first screening in New York? Was that Tribeca?
Believe it or not, we never screened the film at Tribeca.
Oh, so that was when it was supposed to be this year. Is that what? Okay.
It premiered as part of the Tribeca Film Festival.
Right.
Yeah, but it didn't have an actual premiere. So it can be screenings, it can be audience engagement. It has often got an educational component. So we make an educational curriculum that goes with our films. That goes into schools. It can have a direct to school component. Our films go direct into schools. So Kiss the Ground, starting in January, will be available to 114,000 schools, 30 million students in the US alone. And it can have an advertising component, social media, ads, promotion. It can have a marketing component, stickers, buttons, hats, logos.
How can filmmakers who have a sort of social change type of film connect with educational organizations the way that you have?
Well, there are a number of different educational distributors out there. Usually they charge a fee to the school for providing the film, which is, it's a real barrier because, let's face it, public education in this country is chronically underfunded. So what we again try and find is foundations that are willing to put forward the money so the school doesn't have to pay the money. And we just tell the educational distributor, distribute the movie like you usually would, but you're going to get, for every screening, instead of getting, $10 or $20 from the school, you're going to get $10 or $20 from this foundation. And we create a bulk deal so that they go and they do their work and they distribute it.
Got it.
And I think that education is it's a marketplace for movies, for really good movies that aren't just, trash propaganda about something like, let's use more oil or coal or some weird thing that's paid for by a weird pro-industry group. For really genuine filmmakers who have done their work, you've got to get your films, whether they're narrative or documentaries, you got to get your films into education, because trust me, for young people to see a film in school, that is freaking awesome.
And what about approaching organizations to partner with? What's the best way to go about that? I mean, I know it all depends on what your film is, but I'm sure organizations, nonprofits are approached all the time. Is there some good strategies you can employ to sort of work with organizations to get the word out about films such as these?
Yeah, I mean, look, the best thing is if they like your movie. That's the thing. Like, the film is the ad for the film. So if the film is incredible and people like the film and they go, hey, we like your film, what can we do? You can help me get it into schools. I want to translate it into Farsi or Russian or, Mandarin or whatever it is that you're going to want to do with that movie. But it's all about making a great story,
Right. And how could a filmmaker with a social change type of film find the right distributor? Is it best to go through film festivals or perhaps approach distribution companies that have released similar content? What's a good way to go about finding distribution?
Both of those are great. I'm still a huge believer in film festivals, and I've been doing film festivals for a long, long time, 15 years or something, I love film festivals. It's always an honor to screen your film, period, especially for people who actually care about films. So yeah, if you can get into film festivals, you don't have to get the big, fancy, shiny, big name festivals. Like, some of the festivals we screen in are small. I even know, some of the virtual film festivals we're screening in Greece, and we're screening in Yugoslavia. Sometimes we screen to 5 or 10 people.
Right.
I can't do Q&As for every single one, but that's cool, man. I'm down with 5 or 10 people in Yugoslavia watching a movie. That's 5 or 10 more people than we would have gotten, But if you're really looking for distribution, you can go to Film Freeway and you can sort of segregate by top 50 festivals and that kind of thing. and they tend to be more coastal. They tend to be more New York, LA, that kind of thing, where the distributors will look. But and then cold call, direct approach.
Yeah.
I like to have a trailer and a poster. Honestly, I find that putting the money aside and putting the time aside before you've even released your film, to have that trailer and the poster, be like, we get a lot of requests. You know, hey man, just check this out. I'm just sending you the poster right here on email. Have a look at that.
Right.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So it's about the Native Americans and the pipeline. All right. Yeah. Listen. Here, just watch the trailer. 2 minutes. 2 minutes. Just watch the trailer. Watch it with me. Here, I'm sending you the link. Okay. All right. I'm opening. Oh, so it's a drama. Okay. I thought it was a comedy. Whoa. Yeah. Oh, wow. You got a battle scene in there. All right. Okay. Send me the movie. I'll take a look, you know? It may take, look, we're established filmmakers. We've been doing this for a long time. We're like battle hardened, beat up, you know, like I'm recovering from a surgery right now, which is why I'm in bed talking to you. We really have been through, you know, heck and back making these movies, me and Rebecca. But even, it'll take us 20, 30, 40, sometimes 50 conversations to find a distributor for our films.
Right.
That's,
You mentioned some of the smaller festivals, you screen to 5, 10 people, but if you have a really relevant and meaningful and inspirational and educational film and it's really relevant and it's really great, 5 or 10, they tell someone now that's 20, right? And then 20 becomes 40. And
look, in a country where they don't have regular access to things like Netflix, where internet speed might be completely variable, you know, think lights go off at different times. You know, this is a big deal, getting your films out into the world. We assume that everyone lives like we do, you know, Netflix on my phone 24/7, you know.
right.
Think about India, 2 million Netflix subscribers in India, 1.5 billion or more people in the country. 2 million people is nothing in India. I mean, you know, the question should always be, as a filmmaker, like, how do I get this film into places where people don't usually get to see my film? Because
Point. Yeah.
that's what distribution is. Like, you are a distributor, whether you have a distributor or not, you still are a distributor. You always are, as an independent filmmaker, distributor. And keeping that consciousness alive will bring you thousands, millions, tens of millions more viewers than just like, oh, somebody else is going to deal with it.
Right. Yeah. You're filling a gap.
Yeah.
Essentially. All right. I know, I believe I was told we can go until 7, but I just have one quick question for you from the chat box, because it's funny. It actually was a question I was going to ask. Ellie Coleman in the chat box here says, how were you able to enlist the help of a well-known actor to get a well-known actor to come on board?
Yeah. Hey, Ellie, great question. So super random. Like, I wrote a book about, you know, look, Rebecca and I are environmental activists. Our filmmaking work is kind of an extension of our desire to make the planet a better place to live for everybody. So I've been doing this for a while. So I wrote a book in 1997 called From the Fire to the Fuel Tank. It was about running vehicles on biodiesel, used cooking oil. Woody Harrelson got a copy of that book from Willie Nelson and Neil Young, because Neil Young's ranch hand had a copy of the book and gave it to Neil, and Neil gave it to Willie, and Willie gave it to Woody. Woody read the book, and somebody from Woody's camp called me and said, hey, Woody wants to run his bus on hemp biodiesel. I went, oh, that'll be easy. So I went back and forth on the phone with this woman for 6 months to help them get their bus going up on hemp biodiesel. Finally, she said, hey, would you like to come out and meet the crew? And so I went out and I met Woody and his family, and he was like, hey, yeah, thanks for your help, and cool, you know, want some dinner? And that was it. You know, that was kind of the deal. So he did an interview for me because he liked it about biodiesel. I put that in the first film. And then that film went crazy. It went to Sundance, and he came to Sundance. And then we lost touch over many, many years. And finally, we did Kiss the Ground. And Woody is a childhood friend of one of the producers. And he said, look, I think Woody will do a narration for the film. I want you to just show up at his house with a sound recorder. I'm going to convince him that this is a good idea. Show up at this time. So I showed up, and they're having a conversation. And basically, the conversation was, Woody, will you narrate the film? was like, I don't know, another environment. And then I showed up with the sound recorder. He's like, oh, this guy. Okay. And that's how it happened, to be honest.
Okay, very cool. That's a great story.
But
Yeah.
I know a lot of other filmmakers who have gotten, a well-known artists to narrate or to appear in their films simply by asking. DM them on Instagram, send them, again, this is where the trailer and the poster come in handy. Most people don't have time to watch a movie, that they know nothing about. But a poster, quick look, hey, I'd love for you to look at my film. Trailer, quick, you can send that in a DM. So it's all about like sharp, powerful, simple requests. Again, you may have to ask 50 actors. You may have to ask 100. But, when Jennifer Lawrence says yes, you'll be like, glad I didn't stop at 99,
Yeah, it happens. We had one, Olympia Dukakis did the narration. We had another one, John Turturro. I mean, we've had film screen. They got, independent filmmakers were able to get these celebrities to do it. So,
it's all about the hustle.
yeah, totally. All right. So Kiss the Ground, it's going to be on Netflix. Is that correct? Okay. And, is it on now or is it going to be released soon?
It is. It's on now. And I believe it's screening with you guys. And I believe we're also making the film available through the holidays for $1 on Vimeo on demand.
Oh, $1. Okay, great. Vimeo on demand, $1 or
as a gift, holiday gift.
Very nice. Okay, well, we appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right. So Josh Tickell, again, one of the creators of Kiss the Ground, and we're looking forward to checking it out on Netflix. And it's also screening Big Apple Film Festival over the course of the weekend, virtually here. So check it out. And I want to thank Josh for being here, and thank the participants for being here as well. And we wish you a lot of luck with Kiss the Ground. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, New York. Great talking to you.
All right. I'll talk to you soon. Thanks a lot.
Okay. Thanks. Be well, everybody. Bye.